Am I really about to get this whole... Alright, screw it. Things I do for these videos. Yo guys, what is up? It's Fireballmadeit. Welcome back to the Fireballmadeit channel. Today I am coming to you live from a hole in our garage.
I'm in Weldon Spring. I'm in Yevley. I'm in the abandoned city of Pripyat.
And today, we're bringing you an amazing tutorial on how to level up your background game. Now, as designers, I'm sure we've all had this very similar, familiar feeling. You open up Photoshop, you download your pictures, you drop your cutouts in, cut them all out, get your composition all ready.
Come on, where's the trust?
And then you stare at the screen for 2 hours because you don't know where to start on your background. What am I doing with my life? I've also gone through that same feeling where I had no idea where to start and I ended up just scrolling Pinterest for 2 hours looking for inspiration. And so today, I'm going to be showing you 7 different tools and techniques you can use in your next design to level up your background game and start getting through these quicker. We're going to be making your backgrounds hit like crazy. So without further ado, let's get into the video right now.
He's heating up!
Tool number 1 is going to be gradients, and more importantly, utilizing these cohesive gradients in your background designs. Now, I have this tool number 1 on my list because it's one of the most prominent tools that I use every day. If you look through most of my graphics, especially most of my recent ones, you're going to find a gradient in some way, shape, or form. And the reason why I love using these gradients is because it gives you these great light and dark points, which not only helps you create contrast in your design, but it also gives you great starting points for later in the design when you want to add rim lights, glows, shadows, and all of that important stuff. So the way that I create my gradients is going to be with 2 color fill layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down this little half-filled semicircle, bring in a solid color layer, hit OK, then hit Command J to make another one. So this one on the bottom, this is going to be my starting color, so I'm just going to color drop this red from Trout. And also what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a quick selection of where I want the red to be. So I'm just going to have it up on the top, bring it behind my cutouts. Now I'm going to take this second color fill layer and clippy mask it to the first one. Then we're going to hit Command I to invert the mask and make it black, so that way we can add the gradient back in. I'm going to come over here to the brush tool. You can also hit B on your computer to get to the shortcut. I'm going to make sure that my brush is set to the soft brush layer, opacity at 100, and then this is important, flow is going to be at 30. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to eyedropper our first color, and I'm either going to bring it up or down depending on how I want the gradient to be. So I'm going to make this slightly darker, and then because my mask is black, I want to paint with white. And then at the bottom, I'm just going to brush very softly until you can start to see this gradient form, just like so. You can also go a step further and stack gradients on top of each other to create a really dynamic background. So to showcase how you can stack gradients, I've got my Kyle Stowers graphic. As you can see here, I've got this marlin shape in the background, and I've got this blue to like light cyan, light tealish gradient going up. And then I've also stacked it with these grunge assets and these palm trees, and I've got this red-orange gradient on top. And so this helped me create a lot of good light sources for a lot of my highlights. If you look here at this second cutout of Stowers, the gradient here is also acting as kind of like the light for these orange rim lights. Same thing here, I'm getting a lot of cyan light here on this big cutout of Stowers from the big piece, the big Marlins logo with the gradient on it. And so this is just one example of how you can stack gradients together and create these really intricate, cool backgrounds. Number 2, two-tone. So in this context, when I refer to two-tone is where you have a background color and then you've got some kind of asset layered on top of it with a slightly lighter or darker color in order to create 2 different tones on your background. It's kind of similar to a gradient, but it's not. It has a little more definition to it, and it can also be used to create subtle nuances in your graphic if you don't want to go too crazy and just want something simple and clean. Essentially, what you're going to want to do is bring in a solid color fill layer. Let's make this like cyan. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this Maryland flag where I've isolated some things. I've isolated parts of the flag out. You can use anything like textures, state flags like I'm using, logos, and any kind of pattern that you find. You just want to find something to layer over your initial color. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to color drop this color, and then I'm going to come into color overlay, grab that same color, and I'm going to drag this slider up or down depending on what I want to kind of create this two-tone background. Now, is someone texting me? Oh my gosh, it's a scam. I don't need funding, guys. I'm not Flynn. Now, if you want something that's more brighter, more explosive, that pops more, you can use two-tone with two different colors. I've used two-tone with two different colors in this Tarek Skubal poster and also in this Bryson Stott poster. If you see here, I've compared a really bright orange compared to this really dark blue on Skubal. Same thing with Stott, really bright cyan, really dark maroon. It creates a lot of nice contrast which you can tinker around with. And these two-tone assets are really great for creating super clean, super simple, super fresh graphics because it adds these notes of contrast into your design without going over the top. I've also used two-tone in my Adley Rutschman graphic and my Jose Ramirez graphic because it added some really nice color contrast into my poster, and it also prevented my background from being too flat, which is what I didn't want to happen. I don't want my graphics to be super flat. I want them to be simple, but I don't want them to be flat. I want there to be some kind of definition, something that screams, I took time to care for this piece. Technique number 3 is another really super simple technique that's kind of close to two-tone, and that's inversion. Inversion is a technique that can be used to create really, really vibrant backgrounds, and it's super simple. It's only one extra step up, maybe 2 extra steps from creating two-tone. Follow the same steps for either version of two-tone, and then we're going to create a copy of it. So I'm going to Command J both of these layers, and I'm going to flip the colors now. So the bottom layer is going to be this brighter one, and then this Maryland flag that I've got is going to be the darker one. Now I'm going to group together this top layer, these top 2 layers that we just made. If you see, if I turn it on and I turn it off again, it's basically an inversion. I'm going to add a layer mask to it, set it to black, and then I'm going to make random selections just anywhere. It doesn't really matter for the time being. I'm just going to grab as many selections as I want, and then I'm going to invert the mask, and you'll see what that does is it inverts some parts. This is going to add like a lot more complexity to your backgrounds, and depending on if you use two-tone color or two-tone same color, you're going to get some really nice color clashes and some nice little glitch looks into your design. Number 4. Team assets. Team assets like logos and word marks are such a versatile tool that you can use because there's so much variety in where and how you can place them. Logos can be used as large shapes to create the majority of your background. Certain parts of the logo that are uniquely shaped can be used to create textures or spaces for contrast and information. They can be placed into or create negative space to add color to areas that feel bland or flat. They can be used as details along with text to make your graphic feel more handcrafted and intricately placed. Looking through all the examples of my work, logos are prominent and very heavily used in one way or another. And because a lot of teams have logos that are uniquely shaped or have spaces in their logo that are uniquely shaped, there's a lot of variety in what you can use them for. And so that's why I love using logos as the basis for my background. Moving on to some advanced techniques. Number 5 is one of my personal favorites for creating my own textures. and that is the threshold tool. Threshold is a way for you to isolate either the highlights or the shadows of an image, and it's a really great way to create these gritty, grungy textures that you can use in your backgrounds. You can use threshold on a lot of things like pictures, textures, and my personal favorite, construction blueprints and pattern diagrams. To achieve this effect, what we're gonna do is grab the picture we want and bring it into Photoshop. And then we're gonna come back down here to this semicircle and add a threshold adjustment layer. I'm going to clipping mask it, and then I'm going to drag this slider on the right until I've got most of my palm trees isolated. So I'm thinking that's good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the original layer by double tapping it, and you're going to come down to these blend if layers. Now because my palm trees are black, I want to get rid of these white spots. So I'm going to drag the slider just over a little bit, and you're going to see it's all gone. That's what we want. Now I'm going to take these two layers, Command G, and then click on it and hit merge group. Now I can bring this back into whatever composition I'm working on. So let's take this Mike Trout design, for example. And in these white spots, I want it to like be like two-tone, like we've previously done. So I'm going to open it up, go to my color overlay, and then just slightly bring the whites down until my palm trees have become a texture. This technique is what I used on this Cal Raleigh graphic to get a little silhouette of the Space Needle, and it's also how I isolated the city map of St. Louis on this Mason Wind graphic. And so threshold is a great way for you to just create your own textures out of thin air. Technique number 6, dissolving blend mode. Dissolve is another really easy way to create these grungy looking assets for more rougher posters. And it's super simple to make. All it takes is one click. So for this one, I'm going to be using the Colorado Rockies logo, but you're free to use any image or texture or anything you find on the internet. It'll work for that too. What I'm going to do is bring my image into Photoshop, and then all I have to do is head over here to where it says normal, click on that, and hit the drop down dissolve button. And you might be saying, this does not look like it's doing anything. And you're gonna have to look closely, because if you look closely, you'll see that some of your edges have become distressed. If I change it back to normal, you'll see it's back to being smooth. If I switch it back to dissolve, it's a lot more distressed. The pixels, they've started to disperse when you've got it on dissolve, and it almost looks like it's been dissolving, so that's why it's called dissolve. Now we can take this a step further. What you're going to want to do is add a layer mask, and we're going to keep it white, just so that way nothing's changed. Go back, hit B, bring up the brush tool. Same settings as last time, 30% flow, soft brush. And I'm going to paint black onto this layer mask. And anywhere that I paint is going to become more distressed. So you can see the pixels, compared to what we had originally, they've further dissolved. And so if I combine this with some other techniques, you can see I've already got the makings of a pretty good background. Just like that. And with some experimenting, you can create some crazy grungified assets to use in rougher edits. Kind of like what I've got in this Hunter Goodwin composition. I spent some time experimenting, and this is kind of what I've got. And finally, we've made it to the last technique of the video. Number 7 is the use of photography in your edits. Since 2023, using photography as the basis for your graphic has become extremely popular, especially among teams in Europe like Arsenal FC and Chelsea FC, for example. And a lot of teams, even in America, especially like the USC Trojans, have been using photography as the basis of their graphic for quite a while. This technique is used for only one purpose, and that's creating super clean, super simple, information-based graphics. Graphics like full time, final score, that's the exact same thing. I don't know why I said that. Lineups, game day posts, and other good stuff like that. And because photography is so versatile, there's endless possibilities depending on what photos you get given. For example, you can just use one photo as the basis for your graphic. You can stack photos on top of each other. You can get photos from different angles, stack those on top of each other. There's so many limitless possibilities, which is why this technique is so good. And another thing about this technique is that it gives the designer the chance to experiment and break the boundaries of design. For example, as I said previously, you can stack photos, you can take photos from the same angle, different angles, stack those on top of each other, you can create textures out of those, stack those on top of each other. You can use text, you can mess around with different typography styles, different fonts, you can get super elegant designs by using things like Times New Roman, Helvetica, Birds of Paradise, and so many other combinations. You can put text in the corners, you can put text in the middle, you can use shapes, different layouts. There's so many possibilities. I use photography as the base of my graphic for two of my personal posters. I use it on this Tatis poster and this Jungle Lee poster. And I tried to differentiate them in some way. So here on this Tatis poster, you can see I stacked different photos on top of each other. I used multiple photos for the base. Well, with this Jungle Lee one, I just used the same photo. I used one photo and I took the background out of that photo and I used that and the other assets in that photo to kind of create a piece. And I messed around with a lot of text layouts, color grading, and all that stuff to create two really visually appealing but yet different pieces. And just like that, you've now learned 7 of my most favorite techniques when it comes to creating backgrounds for my posters. Any of these techniques will work great on their own, but in order to get the best result, I highly recommend that you try combining some of these techniques together. And the reason I say this is because, number one, it's going to level up the way your design thought process is. When you start combining things together, you get the neurons firing and suddenly you start seeing things that you didn't previously. You start to see different spaces, you start to see a lot more potential in your graphics. And so it kind of helps you when you have a good starting place to actually keep adding and adding and adding and adding on top of it. But most importantly is because of that, it's going to lead to some crazy combinations and make your backgrounds insane. An example that I'm going to go a little more in depth in is my Hunter Goodman design, because I used 3 techniques in there. I used two-tone, I used team logos, and I used dissolve. And when I combined all of that together, it led to probably one of my favorite backgrounds that I designed in my career. I love the way it looks, I love the way the colors pop, I love the way that all the textures just combine and kind of merge into this one melting pot of clean grunginess, and just, it's beautiful. I love it. And so I suggest that you go home, try and do the same, try it out, see what happens. And of course, I tried to make this tutorial super in-depth, so I'm sorry if this comes out a little too long. I'm sorry if you got a little bored, but if you did learn something from this tutorial, make sure that you help me and this channel out and grow by dropping me a like, give me a subscribe, anything, just anything, comment, anything will help this channel. And also let me know what you make in your own time with these techniques. If you have a graphic you need help on, or if you have a graphic you want to show me, please send me a DM, Fireballmadeit on Instagram or any other platform. I'm mostly on Instagram. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Fireball out. Finally, I can get out this hole. I've been here for like 2 hours, dear lord.